So, hello Raising Vibrations community. Welcome to this video of Jupiter and Pluto conjunction. And what I'm going to be doing in this video is talking about my thoughts and impressions of what to expect with this planetary alignment, kind of giving us a little bit of a review of what it has played in terms of our experience culturally, and of course what it means for us individually as well. All right. So before I jump into that, I just want to make it super clear and super important to any of you that are watching this video for the first time. This video is part of a playlist of supporting videos that we've created to help digest and make sense of the significant transits between now and the end of 2020, particularly 2021, the 21st of December. And this Jupiter and Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. So the road leading to the Great Conjunction and the transits involved to there have got a very important, there's a significance in what we will be experiencing as we lead to that point, okay? And they're all very important. So part of that playlist, I encourage you to go check out the introduction video, and that just basically talks about why it's important to see all these transits as something that will deeply help us align to a deeper truth, okay? All right, so let's jump into this Pluto and Jupiter aspect. Before I look at the charts, I just want to talk to you a little bit about, what does Jupiter really represent and what does Pluto represent? So Pluto is the energetic force, right, that represents our deepest vulnerability, okay? The deepest vulnerability. And what emerges out of that vulnerability is deep security attachments, okay? So attachments to anything that we perceive as empowering to us, okay? So at a very core unconscious level, there's a vulnerability, a safety, of course, and then we merge with what we identify as the thing that we perceive as empowering. Okay, so this nature of attachment and osmosis originates out of this vulnerability, and then it drives us through desire to become attached. And in a sense, this desire actually exposes us to the vulnerabilities of our attachment. Okay, we become aware of deeper psychological and emotional patterns of behavior with this attachment. So we get to really learn about ourselves in a deep way with Pluto. So Jupiter is a representation of the cosmology, okay? The perspective that we use to try to make sense of things. And there's two tiers to this. I'm sure that there are more, but there are two main tiers to this. There's an overarching cosmology that we will use, and beneath that cosmology is another subtle sphere of truth or philosophical belief or a system of thought that interfaces with a deeper sense of needing a truth or a philosophy, and then the actual philosophy itself that governs that. And we all have this. Think of it as an umbrella that's over us like this. And when we try to digest or make sense of reality, the filter to which we conceptualize and make sense of things would be the Jupiter realm, okay? So this is the way that we organize our thinking and how we tap into the perspective of truth that we have. So when Pluto and Jupiter make a conjunction, what happens here is that we become very conscious and aware of deep psychological and emotional attachments to these philosophical truths, these cosmological overlays, and these perspectives that we have about ourselves, about the world, and culture, of course. All right. And of course, by natural phenomena, the attachment and the process of the attachment leads us to experiencing or exposing these vulnerabilities in this attachment. So since the beginning of this year, with Pluto's first conjunction to Jupiter, and then of course in the middle of the year, and now again, we've had 3 peak experiences of energy move into our field of awareness that brings to the surface or illuminates for us these patterns of thinking and perceptions that we have, how we've internalized our early life conditioning, how we've internalized our perception of reality, what we define to be the truth or not. These are all aspects and themes that are deeply linked with this planetary placement. Okay. And you can see that very much so show up within the context of the world at the moment. We're all facing with it in some way, shape, or form. And so Jupiter is really bringing to the surface and exposing these. So what you want to do is you want to take your natal chart and you want to observe the placement of, say, Jupiter and Pluto, of course. You want to look at which house that lands. And then you want to reflect on where you are purging philosophical truths, cosmic overlays, a sense of perceptions that you've internalized that have been from culture, individually through your own experience of life, and your natural exploration of what you perceive to be reality. In other words, your attunement to what you see the world to be. And so this is confronting that, okay? And it's eradicating. Pluto is literally taking the landscape of these blocks of truth and perspectives, and it's bulldozing it across. It's like literally eradicating it all, right? So we feel the sense of loss. We feel the sense of things being like exactly being removed, okay? So we want to be looking at where that lands in our chart. We want to be exploring it. An example that I can give you is Pluto in the 7th house, right? So for the last for the last year, you've been really focusing on purging and releasing and healing and allowing yourself to understand the context of why a specific truth has been held in you around relationships, around fairness, around equality, as an example. How do you develop boundaries? You know, certain beliefs that you may have had about the lack of boundaries because of internalized message. You know, these types of things are all relevant. And we're all exploring them and witnessing how they are outdated and no more needing to be fed with importance or meaning. Okay, this is Jupiter conjunction. So I'm going to switch to the chart now. And okay, so as you can see, here's the Pluto conjunction sitting at 22 degrees Capricorn. The Capricorn element to this conjunction, in other words, the extra overlay, is what you're witnessing, and you can see it very clearly in the world, is an entire new shift in the way that our society and our culture is and the landscape, right? How it's been structured. We're very aware of how things we've always been talking about for a long period of time, how Pluto's transit through Capricorn is really changing the structure. But now what we've been exposed to is a deep cleanse and rebirth around life direction, how we define ourselves, and what does structure look like post Pluto, Jupiter, balsamic phase, Saturn, Pluto conjunction, right? What does the world look like? What does the landscape look like now? And the image that comes to mind when I tune to this energy is the story of a group of people, like 10 people, and they're sort of traveling in a jungle, right? They're busy navigating, they're going on a hike, etc. And in a very intense and traumatic experience, Pluto comes along and it removes the Jupiter function in their expedition, which is their compasses, their maps, anything that allows these people to be able to use the instruments to guide them to make direction choices, like where's north, etc. That all gets taken away, right? It gets lost. And now what you have is this interesting dynamic of people who, before this very traumatic experience, were left with a sense of security, a sense of excitement, a sense of discovery, a sense of what's next on the kind of path of their journey. All of that has been removed, and now it's been replaced with uncertainty. It's replaced with despair, stress, and to a large point, a sense of disorientation. Okay, this kind of the way that I see this Pluto-Jupiter conjunction showing up for us in different ways is the compass to which we have used to navigate our lives before this planetary activation took place over the year, progressively throughout 2020 has been removed. And so now we're kind of like trying to make sense of where to go with things. But the old structure to which we used and aligned with doesn't seem meaningful anymore. It doesn't seem purposeful anymore. It doesn't seem like this is forward moving, or in other words, moving in some form of direction. Okay. So what do we do? What do we do with this new landscape? What do these people do in this environment where there is a lot of uncertainty? You know, where's the predator, as an example? Where's danger? This can be actually represented beautifully with this Neptune at the moment that's in Pisces, and it's squaring the nodes there, okay? It plays a very big role in the context of this Jupiter-Pluto new phase conjunction, okay? Because when the planets make a conjunction, they close a cycle, and then it gets initiated into a new cycle. So the only difference between a new moon and Pluto-Jupiter conjunction is the language. Okay, and of course the planetary archetypes themselves and what they mean. But in a sense, it's still the same cycle. So this is an entirely new cycle of energy that will be emerging into our world. And for the first 10 degrees of that experience, it's going to be very, very, very uncomfortable, very uncertain. There's going to be a lot of confusion around where to go, what to do, a lot of disorientation. And that primarily has a lot to do with the Neptune that is squaring the nodes here. So for all of us in some way, shape or form, as we've allowed things to be cleared out from our space, there's a new vacuum of perception that can come into our field of awareness to direct us. And that has a lot to do with Mars's direct movement and what Mars has really been doing in its retrograde motion for the last month and a half. Because again, from an evolutionary perspective, the balsamic phase, the closing phase between Jupiter and Pluto, as it relates to the South Node, remember the South Node is ruled by Jupiter because it's in Sag, we've needed there to be non-action with the closure and the ending of the cycles, because that moving in that direction would have meant using old instruments to guide and navigate. We don't want that. Okay. So now, as we experience this conjunction take place, and this is the chart of it, what we want to step into, and some of you already feel this, some of you will recognize this sense. This is an invitation to take what it is that you've been discovering, learning, and healing about yourself, and you want to anchor that into your body. You want to anchor that into your body. You want to anchor that into your body. You want to become more aligned with that truth. And that's pretty much what, between now and the end of the year, when we get to the 21st of December, this is about a deep embodiment process. Okay, and attunement and alignment. Because when Jupiter and Saturn enter Aquarius, it's about the assimilation into the like-mindedness, to the right group, to the people that resonate, right? And it's going to feel like you belong. So all of this work right now is about getting in touch with your inner truth, which is why it feels like a blindfold will be on you, or that the compass or the traditional measurements for navigating have been taken away. And now you're left with your inner voice. And I see this really interesting with this Gemini North Node and the quincunx to the Sun, right? Scorpio and Gemini are archetypes that one is the surface and the other one's beneath the surface, but they complement each other in the sense that curiosity to explore beyond the surface is what they're really saying here with that inconjunct. So the message here is, while it is very easy and very, don't know what other word to use there, but let's just say we're very vulnerable at this point in time to being swayed to believe in something relative to the loss of faith, the loss of truth, the loss of meaning, right? As we become, or we're vulnerable in this place, we can easily find ourselves becoming reattached to false, outdated truths and narratives, We can easily become attached to ideologies and perspectives that are not of your own truth, but of something that gives you a sense of connection, gives you a sense of meaning. So what I'm trying to say here is that this energy, okay, here at the moment with the Scorpio attachment, transformation energy, this energy over here, as it trines the Neptune, is we've got to go inward during this time. And you've got to begin to connect with meaning for you. You have to be able to start to identify what is meaning for you. And between now and, well, the whole of 2020, it's been about pushing that space. So if you don't know what that is, ask yourself, what is it that you would do every single day if you woke up and said, this is what I want to do? Or gave something to, right? If you could wake up with a feeling of motivation or giving something that felt resonant. And again, if you don't know that question, that's also okay, because this is a time in which we will be able to get to figure that out. And the image that Jen actually shared and put across was, between now and the end of the year, it's going to feel like you're in the middle of a town square, okay? And there's hundreds of people, and you're in the middle of this town square, and everybody's lost a friend, okay? So every single person, including you, has lost your friend. And so when everybody's like trying to say, hey, where is my friend? Where's my friend? Our own voice gets lost in the collective voice. It gets drowned out. So we feel a sense of that the noise, the dissonance, clouds out our clarity, and we can't find a friend. But interestingly enough, the paradox of the situation is that it is in the noise of things that don't resonate, that don't sound like the same language, that don't feel like they really connect and bring more of your inner truth out of you. That is your navigation at this point in time. So it is to step into a space, in which you internalize your security and you realize you're seeking to navigate your own space, your own world, your own inner truth. And then you are syncing with people's voices that sound similar to yours and that have a very curious type of nature, which is, hey, this is like-mindedness. I really like what this person's saying and I align with that over there. Or I'm digesting information that is not all over the place, but seems to really, really hit me at the core of my being. This seems correct. And it pulls your truth out. And so in a sense, as we're walking around trying to find our friend in the lost crowd, we keep saying it, our friend's name that we say has a resonance to it. And so as we're kind of navigating, at some point, you will say something and that sound will match another person's sound that is on the same frequency, and there will be collaboration. So this is about becoming more progressively attuned to the clarity of your voice and the sound of your truth through the collective dissonance of everybody doing the same thing. Okay? So the final thing with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is that we are leading into an entirely new landscape of truth, and expression of truth, and discovery of truth, and the navigation inward to be able to live out that truth and embody that for yourself. Okay? All right. So, what I want to say is, I hope this really kind of gives you some space to digest what this means and how that resonates for you. I encourage you to take out your astrology chart and see where this transit lands in your chart and how that's been processing for you individually and what is coming up for you in terms of a shift in perspective so that you can live more in alignment with your truth, so you can become more embodied and more calibrated in that perspective. Okay? All right. So 2 things that I want to say. One, the next video in this playlist is Mars Direct, so I encourage you to go check that out. Also, we have the Patreon community, and like I said in the introduction video, and here as well, is that we have created specific dates to support our Patreon community in terms of how to process beyond these videos. So if that's something that you find valuable to yourself, or if you find that could be supportive to you, I'll put a link to our Patreon community in the description as well. Okay. All right, everybody, have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.